Good morning, everyone, and welcome to Unique Not Different with me, Shamla. Today, I have members of the Down Syndrome Family Network. On March 21st, we celebrate World Down Syndrome Day, and the Down Syndrome Family Network has been raising awareness through a number of initiatives leading up to World Down Syndrome Day on March 21st. And so today, I have Surya Hussain, who is a self advocate here to represent Down Syndrome Family Network. And I also have Lorena Ramkaran, who is the director of the Down Syndrome Family Network, also an attorney at law and a social justice advocate. And this year's theme is End the Stereotype. So I would start with you, Surya. Good morning, and how are you doing?
I'm good.
Fantastic. So can you tell me what is stereotype?
We are all different
Mhm.
and we have different talents.
Awesome. So, Lorena, on March on March 19th, on March 21st, there will be a conference with significant persons there who are highly influential in terms of policy, both locally and internationally, right?
Yeah.
How do we, through this conference, how do you plan, or your team is planning on harnessing this message and the stereotype through this conference?
Okay. So one of the main topics that we'll be discussing at the conference is actually the national disability legislation. And we feel as if the first step and maybe the foundation of ending stereotypes is having legislation in place to ensure that persons with disabilities have an avenue to enforce their human rights. Because a common misconception or a common misunderstanding is that persons with disabilities aren't entitled to the same rights as other human beings because or by virtue of their disability. But with legislation in place, outlining that they're entitled to work, to equal healthcare, to equal access to education, it is ensuring that persons not only get a better understanding of what are the rights of persons with disabilities, but understand that they no longer fit into certain boxes. And that in itself is breaking the stereotypes. And the legislation will also ensure that other persons in society, especially businesses, the public sector, the private sector, do their part in enforcing and ensuring that persons with disabilities have equal access as everyone else. So, a big part of breaking stereotypes is ensuring that there's legislation in place.
I know that your team has been working, in advocating for legislation for persons with disabilities from your from inception since you started, this advocacy and talking to, I guess, persons in the public sector as well as government. Do you see any progress in terms of getting this enacted anytime soon?
Yes, for sure. Right now there is a draft bill. Um, at the moment, there are consultations taking place with respect to recommendations or suggestions to be added or to be made to this draft bill. So this is already a big step compared to where we were from the beginning. So it's actually it's within our vision now.
Awesome. So on March the 19th, there will be a conference at the Hyatt Regency. And
Yeah.
then on March 20th, you all go to Tobago to have a conference. Can you tell
Yeah.
us a little bit about this conference and who would be the speakers and so on?
Okay, so the aim of the conference is really to inform persons and stakeholders with respect to the things that we advocate for, mainly inclusion legislation, and to really show parents, especially, what their kids or wards with disabilities are capable of. So we aim to have a lot of international speakers who are experts in their field, including a self-advocate. our self-advocate this year, she's a future speaker, is Nicole Flynn. She's actually the president of the Council of Community Living Ontario and the CEO of her own company, Nicole Flynn Enterprises. Also, one of the speakers on the day will be Mrs. Sharon Rowley. She has been a very good friend of the network and a very big advocate for persons with disabilities as well. We'll also have Professor Sean Smith. He's the president of National Down Syndrome Congress. And we'll also have our self-advocate, Miss Kelly Simmons, our very own self-advocate there on the day as well as one of our speakers.
Syria, what do you look forward to the most for World Down Syndrome Day?
See all my friends at the conference and rock my socks.
Awesome. So this leads me to this question. You all have been having this initiative, lots of socks, where you go and sell socks in order to support the World Down Syndrome Family Network as well as raise awareness. Can you tell us a little bit about the meaning behind Rock Your Socks? And since its inception, how has it grown? Because I know definitely it has grown, both private and in the public sector.
Yes. So socks basically they look like chromosomes, and a person with Down syndrome has an extra chromosome. So basically, when we wear our socks, it has to be a different color, it has to be funky, so it will spark an interest. And when persons come up and ask you why you wearing mismatched socks, why you wearing funky socks on a random day in March, it's so it can initiate that conversation on what is Down syndrome and to raise awareness. So the socks, the visual is just a trigger to initiate that conversation. Yeah, so and from the beginning, I don't think many people in Trinidad really appreciated what it means to rock your socks. So in the beginning, we didn't really have a large movement here in Trinidad, but now we have hundreds of businesses, hundreds of schools being a very big part of rocking your socks. And if you go on our Facebook page, the Down Syndrome Family Network, and you look over the years and the pictures we've posted, you would see compared to then to now, we have like hundreds of pictures of persons submitting themselves rocking their socks.
Going into these, let's say businesses, throughout the years, do you think that the awareness has been cemented into person's mind? Because sometimes we just take it for granted. We buy our socks, we wear it, we raise awareness, that's it, right? But
Yeah.
do you think that okay, they know the reason behind it, and and hence the stereotype, right? So
Mhm.
is it that persons are aware that persons with Down syndrome are no different from us? We just do things differently.
Well, I mean, I feel like it's a very loaded question. I feel we could probably talk about this for the rest of the morning. All I can say basically though is that while there is some awareness, there's always room for more. And I feel like I'm probably sounding like a broken record, but I think that the legislation is what is going to really probably force people into going into that space where they really realize that persons with Down syndrome and persons with disabilities are not entitled to different treatment. Because the legislation will basically put things in writing and be enforceable under law. And I feel like that's maybe the extra push that persons may need.
Sharia, I'm looking for some advice, right? And I think this advice will go to everyone across the country and everyone who's listening. For your friends who are not feeling happy right now, what advice would you give them?
Play, play soccer music and dance.
Sweet. So just be yourself and play the music that you like, play soccer and dance and dance. And Lorena, can you tell us how can person get in contact if they want to support the Down Syndrome Family Network? And also some information on how do they get tickets for the Down Syndrome conference.
Okay. So you have to register for the conference. It's a cost of $300, which is actually very fair because it's going to be held at the Hyatt and it's going to be a world-class conference. So you can register online. There's a link that you can use. This link, you can get it from any of our social media pages, be on Facebook, Instagram, as well as LinkedIn. So any of these websites, you can get the link where you can register for both the Trinidad and the Tobago conferences. And I'd like to take a moment to say thank you to our sponsors, Republic Bank and Caribbean Airlines. Without them, these conferences probably won't be at the standard that they are.
Awesome. So Lorena and Syria, I want to say thank you so much for taking your time and coming. And Lorena, I just want to say thank you for your support with this. Seriously, thank you. And Syria, keep being you and keep being awesome. So guys, go out, support, visit the Down Syndrome Family Network social media pages and support at their conference and also with lots of socks and Down Syndrome World Down Syndrome Day will be celebrated on March 21st. With that being said, I want to say thank you to everyone for tuning in to this week's segment of Unique Not Different. As I always say, be good, be good. Bye everyone.